changed the SD card, and yeah, this video is probably gonna be a little bit longer than the other one by, man. Man. Well, speaking of the second copy, yeah, here it is. There's the second copy of the movie. I would show you that I have 2 copies, but I just packed it away, and I don't really want to go digging through it again. But hopefully, you guys believe me that I actually have 2 copies of this thing. Just put it off the side so I don't pull it out again. But here's actually one of my favorite movies. But not only is it one of my favorite movies, it's actually my favorite Zack Snyder movie. And yeah, I'll be like, if you saw my last video, you would know that I'm doing an entire DC video, and I'm also doing the Marvel versus, or I mean not Marvel, Civil War versus Batman versus Superman. Or I'll also be talking about Zack Snyder a lot and why I actually like a lot of his movies. But I don't own all of his movies, but I've seen all of them, if that makes any sense. I think I do have another one of his movies in here, other than Bat vs. Superman. I think I have I think I might have one of his other movies. I can't remember. But I also have Firestarter, which is a 2-movie collection, but I don't know what the second. Oh, yeah, Firestarter 2. I never actually saw Firestarter 2, but I did see the first one, and I love the first one. But from what I know, the first one was actually endorsed by Stephen King, while the second one, as far as I know, wasn't, because I don't recall there actually being a sequel to the book. So sequels to the movie, it's similar to Pet Sematary 2, which is one of the worst sequels I've ever seen, and I'll probably talk about that when I start doing maybe a Stephen King video or something. I don't know. Crap, I'm doing this all over again. This is another TV show that I have. It's called The 10th Kingdom. This is a very weird show, but I love every second of this, and I watch this every now and again, and it's actually one of my favorite fantasy stories. It kind of reminds me of Pan's Labyrinth, which I think I have in here, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked through these boxes. Oh, Chappie. This is kind of similar to. Well, I didn't get as much hate as it, but it kind of reminds me of Batman vs. Superman and its situation. A lot of people hated this movie when it came out, and honestly, maybe it's because I have a weird tendency to watch movies 3 months after they're released, and I actually didn't know anything about this movie when I first saw it. I actually saw it on rental, and I was like, oh, cool, robots, and watched it, and ended up loving it more than I probably should have. This is another movie that got a lot of hate too. It was District 9. I mean, it wasn't as bastardized as the Chappie one, at least to my knowledge, but it did seem like a lot of critics didn't really care about this movie all that much. And I actually really like this movie because it's a very different take on alien invasion movies, and it's kind of hard for me to hate it for that fact. Plus, it's a very well-made movie, and I really liked all the characters in it, and it's a very interesting movie. Speaking of interesting, I have Donnie Darko here, and this is a weird movie. Not weird in a bad way. I mean, weird in a very psychedelic way. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe it without spoiling it, but if you haven't seen it, I really recommend watching it. It does throw your brain for a loop, especially because it's one of those stories where it doesn't make much sense throughout as you're watching it, but it hits you at the end, by the end of the movie, how all the pieces fall into line, or how all the pieces fall into place. And here I have The Crow, which I think this is a special edition because this is not a normal case. Yeah, collector's series. Yeah, God, I'm being an idiot today. But This is actually my second favorite comic book movie, I think. Yeah, second favorite. I actually don't own my first favorite, which is depressing to say, but hopefully I'll get my copy of my favorite comic book movie at some point. But yeah, this is my second favorite, and yeah, I love this movie to bits, and it's one of the more upsetting ones, but that's kind of why I like it. Yeah, here we have Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass 2. A lot of people seem to agree that the first one's really good, but the second one I feel gets a lot more hate than it deserves. I will admit there are some really stupid decisions made in this movie. Not like made by the characters per se, but even though the characters do make some stupid decisions in it, but like the writing in this movie is nowhere near as good as the first one. But I do recommend watching this if you like the first one. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about these two movies. They're good. Here I have the first Robocop, and this is actually one I have 2 copies of, and they're both DVDs. But this one I have the normal one here, but I also had like a double feature that had this and the first Terminator. And I don't know where that double feature one went, but whatever. Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite movies, and it actually was my favorite for a long time, and I will be showing you my favorite in a minute, but this and my favorite go back and forth a lot, and yeah, I don't really know how else to describe that, other than it's one of my favorite movies. Yeah, here comes this is like the double feature one. I don't actually have like the full like case like this for the first Terminator, but I have the movie nonetheless. A lot of people consider the second movie better, but I kind of like these two movies equally, because I have a hard time hating on either of them, because I consider both of these movies pretty much perfect. And it's like these are almost as perfect as a sci-fi movie can get. And there's another sci-fi movie besides Robocop that I consider almost perfect as well, and I know for a fact I have it in here. But now we're getting into some Spielberg movies. I have the first and second Jurassic Park movie, and I have Jurassic World somewhere. I think that's in here somewhere, but I don't know where it is, but it'll probably come up in a minute. But I actually am trying to get the third one, and I would go more into it, but that's another series I'm going to try to get into, because I really want to get my opinion on the Jurassic Park movies out there. I also have Gremlins. I really want to get the second one at some point, but all I really got is the first one. As you can see, it's a special edition, and I think this just has like extra special features and stuff on it, but yeah, it's actually I don't know if it's my favorite Spielberg movie, but it is one of my favorites from him. And I'll talk about these two individually. Yeah, I know these two movies have nothing in common, but like they're I'm talking about them at the same time, because they're two movies that are part of a trilogy that I don't have yet. I am trying to get the trilogies of both of these movies, but as of right now I only have these two, The Dark Knight and The Return of the King. And yeah, I don't really know how. I just wanted to get those two out of the way, because I know if I didn't, probably would have been talking about them for a while. I also have The Lone Survivor, which this is another one I didn't actually know anything about when it was coming out, but I watched it at a neighbor's house, and he let me watch it. And the thing is, like, I don't know why, but he hated the movie, yet he had it. but I think he let me keep it, and he either let me keep his or I bought my own. I don't know how I actually got this. I don't want to make it sound like I stole this, but I just remember, I think I actually bought this. I don't know, but yeah, it's actually one of the few based on a true event movies that I actually really like, and it's actually one of 3 true event movies I like, and all 3 of them have Mark Wahlberg in them, surprisingly. And that's not because it has they have Mark Wahlberg in them. It's just they happen to have Mark in them. Yeah, talking about the sci-fi movie, but I have the original Total Recall, and this is actually one of my favorite. Not only one of my favorite sci-fi movies, but one of my favorite movies as well is Robocop, and I do consider this movie pretty much perfect, as well as the Terminator movies and the first Robocop. And I don't know if this is really considered a sci-fi movie, but I'm going to consider it that. Yeah, I do have the first Matrix, and I actually have all 3 of the Matrix movies, but I don't know where the second and third one went. But I think my dad ended up keeping them. But yeah, this is I'm going to consider this as a sci-fi movie just for simplicity's sake. But this is another sci-fi movie I consider pretty much perfect, and I think many people agree with me on that. I also have Shooter, which was directed by the same guy who made, I think, Magnificent Seven, and I think he also made Equalizer with Denzel Washington. If I remember right, I think that's the same guy, but he also made Training Day as well. And yeah, this is one of the handful of Mark Wahlberg movies I actually think he did a really good job in. And a lot of people don't consider him a good actor, but movies like this and Lone Survivor and what was the other one? Oh yeah, Patriots Day and I think it was what was it there was another one. It was like Deepwater Horizon or something like that. That was another good one. I also have Salt, which is actually one of my favorite spy thrillers, and I don't know how else to really describe it. It's an interesting movie, and I love it. It's fun. It's on par with the Jason Bourne movies, in my opinion. I don't really know how else to really talk about this movie other than talking about the actual movie itself. But yeah, I know I'm being really slow with this, but whatever. I also have Poltergeist, and I don't know if you guys can hear it, but sorry about all the noise going on outside. I don't know what's actually going on, but yeah, this is another one of my favorite Spielberg movies. I know Spielberg only produced it, but technically he kind of directed it, because I think he pulled like a Tim Burton and basically directed the director throughout this movie. And so technically this is his movie, but whatever. Yeah, I'm actually trying to get the trilogy of this too, because I actually saw 2 and 3, and they're not bad, but they're not as good as this one, which is not so surprising because of what this is. But I do want to get all 3 of them because I'm a movie buff and I want to get a complete collection. And I'm also going to get cranky if I don't have all my movies. I also have the 2005 King Kong movie. And King Kong is one of those stories that I remember always liking, but I always preferred creatures like Godzilla and stuff like that. But not saying this isn't a good movie. This is one of my favorite monster movies, and it's one of those, I don't pop in all the time, but I do pop it in every now and again. And yeah, I don't really know how else to talk about it. I'm pretty sure all of you have seen this movie by now. I always have seen this movie at least once now, so I won't talk. Ow, god damn it! I don't know why I said owl, but I don't know. Oh yeah, here I have The Corpse Bride, which is actually one of my favorite animated movies. Uh, uh, for some reason, I don't have Nightmare Before Christmas, which is it's kind of, well, blasphemy, but it's actually because that's one of my favorite animated movies as well. But yeah, I don't really know how else to say it, but yeah, it's like I put this on par with a lot of the Leica movies that have come out recently. Oh yeah, speaking of my favorite movie, yeah, this one, like this and Robocop go back and forth between my favorite movie, and this one I think is actually my favorite due to the fact it's more of a horror movie than Robocop is, and with I don't know why like, every time I see this movie, it's like I see something new about it, and like I love everything about it. Like every time I learn something new about the behind the scenes and like how the actors were, like all basically everything behind the scenes and everything. Every time I watch the movie, I see something new that I appreciate. But yeah, I think technically this is my favorite movie. But yeah. I also have the first Predator, and it's the only Predator movie that I'm actually really comfortable with buying. I know I said I'm a movie buff, but I'm not really all that excited about trying to get Predator 2 or any of the Alien vs. Predator movies. Actually, speaking of the Alien movies, technically I don't have any of them, but yeah, I know my mom has the first two, and but I am trying to get my own copies of the Alien movies, and even the fourth one, as much as I hate the fourth one. But yeah, here we have Stand By Me, which is a Stephen King movie, which actually, or not Stephen King movie, he didn't actually have anything to do with it, but it was based on a book he wrote, and it's actually really entertaining. I actually really like it. It's one of the more light-hearted Stephen King movies, but even that's saying much because there is a lot of dark stuff in this. Yeah, that's a lie. Yeah, there is some really depressing stuff in this movie, but overall, it's kind of like in a very adult version of Sandlot. But yeah, speaking of Stephen King, we're going through a bunch of Stephen King movies I have. Yeah, here we have The Mist. Also have Pet Sematary and Christine, and I pointed out It earlier, so don't really need to introduce that. I think I took It out of here and then watched it, and then I never put it back for some reason. But yeah, I'm trying to get as many Stephen King movies as I can get because I actually really like Stephen King, and I'm trying to get his books as well because he's one of my favorite writers and one of my favorite and a lot of my favorite movies come from are based on his books. Here we have Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, two Edgar Wright movies I really absolutely adore. And these are two comedies. I think these two I would consider the best, two of my favorite comedies. Like they're at like the top of the list. Like nothing compares to these two, except for maybe World's End and Baby Driver, which are also made by Edgar Wright. And also I would consider Scott Pilgrim versus the World to be on par with them as well, which again is also made by Edgar Wright. Here we have Magnificent Seven, which is the remake one, and if you couldn't tell, I don't have the original or the what was it, like the Seven Samurai or something like that, the black and white movie. But yeah, this was a surprising movie because westerns aren't my favorite genre of film, but this one was really surprising. It's probably my favorite western, but then again, it's not really saying much due to the fact that I don't really watch that many westerns. Here we have Good Will Hunting, which is actually which is actually one of my favorite movies as well. And I don't really know how to describe how much I like this movie, because even though it's not my favorite movie, The Thing has that regard. But this would be my favorite drama per se, because like being my favorite at something is worth saying. But it's like this movie, like even for a drama, it actually has its funny moments, but it is more dramatic than it is a comedy. So that's probably why I like it as much as I do. Oh crap! There's one hiding. I also have Snowden, which is also based on a true events movie. The only true event movie that doesn't have Mark Wahlberg in it that I actually really like. This movie was also really surprising. I wasn't really all that excited about it when I first heard about it. I was like, oh, it's based on a true story, it must be terrible. And then I actually watched it, I think like a couple years after it came out, and ended up loving it a lot more than I expected. And I don't know if I'd consider it my favorite, in my favorite movies, but I would. It is one of the few true event movies that I actually would recommend to anyone. I also have the First Conjuring, which I'm trying to get almost pretty much every movie in this universe, even the ones I don't really care about, like Annabelle or what was the other one, like The Nun or whatever. But I really want to get Conjuring 2 and Annabelle Creation as well. But I think this is the only Conjuring movie I actually have. I'm also trying to get the Insidious movies as well. Time for probably. I'm not going to really talk about my opinion on this movie, but I also have the original Transformers movie. I probably should have talked about this when I was talking about the live action ones, but people probably would have gotten mad at me for putting this in the same spot as the live action ones. But yeah, I don't really know what to really say about it. I also have the first two Expendables movies, and even though I am a film buff and I'm trying to get like every movie in certain trilogies and stuff, Expendables 3 is one movie that I'm not really all that excited about getting, because it's, well, terrible compared to these two. And the third one, I wasn't really all that excited for it because it was a third in a franchise, but it was a total letdown compared to these two. And I don't really know what else to say, but I absolutely adore these two movies, and they're basically everything I love about action movies from the 90s. Okay. Here comes another, special, case movie. I have all three of the Back to the Future movies, and this was a franchise that I was always kind of mixed about. I always loved the first one, and I always really liked the second one, but for some reason I never liked the third one until I got much older. When I first saw the third one, I absolutely hated it, and I didn't actually watch it again until I think 10 years later, and which was like 2 years ago, I think. And then I ended up actually really liking it a lot, which was surprising. But I was like, oh, wait, I could have sworn this movie was terrible. But here I have Wanted, which is another spy thriller action movie that I really like. Yeah, I kind of don't want to call it a spy movie, but it's an action thriller that's very entertaining. It reminds me of Salt in a lot of ways, where not spies. They're assassins, not spies. My mind's not working. It's probably because I'm talking about 100 movies right now, but God, this video is probably it's probably gonna be like 40 minutes long. I might have to split this into a third part. Here I have Dread, and I actually am thinking about trying to get the original one. The one with Sylvester Stallone, which I'm not all that excited about because I absolutely adore this movie and don't really want another Judge Dredd. Unless they make a sequel to this, then I'll undoubtedly try to do everything I can to watch it. But yeah. This is a movie that a lot of people hated for some reason, which is Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters. And I honestly don't understand why people hated this movie as much as they did. Yeah, it's very out there, like they're carrying guns, and it's one of the more interesting spins on a folk tale. And I think stuff like this inspired. There was a Little Red Riding Hood movie that was done in a similar way, but the thing that made me not want to watch it was that the director of Twilight made it, and from the sound of it, it's basically Twilight without vampires, which kind of sucks. But here I have King Arthur, which is actually the last movie I have with me, and yeah, I honestly don't understand the hate that this movie got either. It's entertaining, and it's actually one of my favorite action movies and one of my favorite Guy Ritchie movies. So yeah, this was a movie collection video that lasted a lot longer than I expected. Sorry if this video was a lot more boring than than the last one, but I had 2 boxes of movies to go through rather than only a handful. So yeah, hopefully YouTube will be nice to me and let me actually upload this long ass video. Oh boy. And I want to quickly say it before I forget again, but I was gonna say this at the end of the last video, but I actually am working on a sketch right now, and hopefully I will make it by hopefully it'll either be uploaded by tomorrow or Friday. And I don't really have much of a schedule on YouTube, so don't expect me to actually keep that promise, but hopefully it comes out at least sometime soon. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hope you guys saw a movie that you like. And if you saw your favorite movie in here, you can feel free to comment down below what you saw. Or I don't even know what I'm fucking saying anymore. I should probably just end this video before it gets too long.